Hi, my name is Jack Blankenship. I think that oftentimes we don't see Christ in the things that He does, or we don't give credit to Him for what He does. So that's what this video is all about. I want to thank Christ for what He's done for me. Years ago, when I was a young man, I got into a lot of trouble with the police. I had quite an extensive criminal record. One time I was facing 25 to life at Rayford State Penitentiary in Jacksonville, Florida. Let me just say the good Lord opened the doors and let me out. My attorney, we'd fought the case for, I think it's 5 months or so. And one day on a Thursday, my attorney comes to me and he tells me, Jack, I got nothing else. You're going to go to prison. And we're going to come back in on Tuesday, and they're going to find you guilty. And 2 weeks later, you'll have a sentencing hearing. And I asked him what did he think they'd give me. And he said they're going to be pretty hard because in their eyes, you wasted the court's time. Tuesday, I'm supposed to come back and be found guilty. My attorney was done. It was over in his mind. He had lost the case, and he'd become a friend of mine over time. So really, it hit him hard that I was going to go to prison. And so I went back to my jail cell. So I went and climbed up in my bunk at 9 o'clock, before 9 o'clock, just before. And I laid there. And all of a sudden God started, I can only say it was God, because I had not really contemplated at that time my real circumstances, I guess. And I realized at that point that I'd probably never see my mother again, because she lived out in California and there was no reason for her to come to Florida. I loved to travel. I mean, I loved waking up in the morning and going wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted, 3 hours away, 5 hours away, spend the week, whatever. I just loved to travel. I realized I'd never do that again. And as I laid there, these things started running through my head that I would never have children. I'd never have a wife. I'd never have a normal life like everybody else. I'd never be successful in business or anything. And all these things are running through my mind. And it really brought me down. In the Bible they call it in church they call it being convicted. But it was really, really hitting me hard. And I started rolling all this in my mind that my decisions in life, I couldn't no longer blame anybody else. I was 18. I had made all my own decisions. I couldn't blame my mother. I couldn't blame my family. I couldn't blame anybody. It was me. I was guilty. And now my bad decision making had brought me to this point where I'm at, where I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. And it really hit me emotionally. And so then I finally, that night, I finally hit a point where I was broken. I had no hope. Everything looked dark. In my eyes, there was nothing to live for anymore. And all of a sudden I heard a voice. And it said, "Say my name." I never really heard this voice before that I knew of. In my head it said, say my name, Jack. You know my name. And all of a sudden, like a picture across my head, the name Jesus was boldly imprinted on my forehead, in my eyes. And I said, Jesus? And he said, say it again. And I said, Jesus? And all of a sudden I broke down and I said, I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. Every Christian I've ever seen had a very boring life. I'd never wanted that life. But now that life looked very good compared to the life that I had. It looked very good with me not going to prison. But now I'm going to prison. He said, Jack, call my name. And I said, okay, Lord. I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. But all my decisions have brought me to this place. And I don't care if I go to prison or get killed. The rest of my days, I'm going to get to know you. I don't want to make any more decisions on my own. My decisions have brought me here. And I told him, I said, Lord, guide me. And I'll live the rest of my days for you. And then boom, it was like ice cold water started to hit my head, and it flushed like a big wave through my body. And I felt it go out my arms and out my fingertips, and it was, I couldn't see it, but I could feel this cleansing. I'd never felt this before. And I felt joy, and I felt okay. Okay, I'm going to prison, so what? So the next day I woke up, I fell asleep, and I remember what time it was. It was about 9:15-ish. Right after the lights turn out. God works very quickly sometimes. And that night, I didn't know what they called it, but that night I turned my life over to Christ. I had accepted Christ as my Savior. And that washing through my body was Him cleansing me so I could be free in my soul, free in my spirit, free and have clarity of mind. And so the next day I woke up and I was actually happy. And I hung out with the guys, I played cards. I still didn't know who Christ was. I didn't know. I had never read really the Bible. I you know, in the past I went to a church one time so that I could meet a girl that I had a crush on when I was a kid. But other than that, I didn't know who he was. The weekend passed, and Tuesday morning comes up. So they take me to the courthouse. When you're in jail, there's this holding tank that they put you in outside the courthouse, right behind the doorways behind the judge, beside the judge on both sides. And that's where they keep the inmates. And when it's your time to come up in front of the judge, they come in, get you, and you walk out. And as I'm walking out to be to be addressed by the judge, my attorney's got a smile on his face. It made me upset. All that ran through my mind was, I'm going to prison for life, and you're happy about it? And he said, no, Jack, no, sit down. Sit down. Everything's going to be okay. And I sat down. And what preceded blew my mind. he asked questions he'd never asked. He made statements he'd never made. And when he was all done, the judge dismissed me. The judge dropped the charges, dismissed the charges. I was blown away. My attorney said he had nothing else, that I was going to prison, and I'd got my head wrapped around going to prison. And all of a sudden, I'm free? So I had to give the attorney, I had to pay the attorney his last check. So I went to his office and met up with him, and I asked him, I said, what happened? How did this, you told me you had nothing else. And he said, Jack, he said, sit down, sit down. And I sat down, and he began to tell me the story. He said, Jack, you know, they teach us in law school that all attorneys, whenever you lose a big case, and this was a big case, we'd become friends and I was emotionally attached to you. He said, and when we lose a big case, we have to find some way of releasing it out of our minds. If we don't release it out of our minds, we'll carry that baggage over into the next case, and it'll hurt that case. And so his way, he told me, was he sits down with his kids and his whole family, and they watch a movie, a happy movie that the kids really like. And he says, and that does it for him. He after the movie, after hanging out with his wife and kids, he's fine. And he said he sat down, and they had the popcorn and his little daughter in his lap, and his wife and other kids were there, and they turned the movie on, and he said he wasn't thinking about me at all, and all of a sudden, boom! He said it was like somebody downloaded information into his brain, and the only thing I can think of is like on the movie The Matrix, when this girl learns to fly a helicopter and they just download it into their brain. He explained it like that. He said, and all of a sudden I knew everything. I knew every question I didn't ask. I knew every statement I didn't make. He goes, and I knew at that moment I was going to win your case. And I asked him, I said, when was this? He says, it was Thursday night. And I said, what time Thursday night? Now I'm starting to think of the time I accepted Jesus Christ. And he said, oh, 9:15. As God is my witness, it blew my socks off. I'd never, that I had known, experienced the hand of God in my life. I surely was not a great Christian. I didn't know anything about him still. But that day, he put himself in my life. And this is my testimony of how God literally opened the jail cell doors. And I'm happy to say all those things in the dream, what I was realizing I wouldn't never have, a wife and kids and a home and a career, and I never ever thought that I would have grandkids. And now I have a fabulous grandson. God has truly blessed my life. And I want to tell you this because if you put your faith in Him, if you trust in Him, He'll bless yours, because He truly does love us. And He truly is alive and very active in our lives. I have thousands of testimonies now. Over the next few months, I'll be recording them and putting them here on this website for all to see. I hope that these help you. There will be more. I'll post more people's testimonies because God is working all over the world. He's working in people's lives in the worst places on earth, and He can work in yours today. I serve a God that can cure cancer. God bless.